I never imagined that a torn, soaked piece of paper floating on the ocean waves could completely transform my life. My name is Amina, and this is not just a story. It's a testimony of transformation, courage, and the painful cost of choosing truth over comfort. Born and raised in a place where tradition is everything, where stepping out of the mold means risking everything, I learned the hard way that faith isn't always a safe journey, but it is always worth it. This isn't about rebellion. This is about discovering love in a way I was never told it could exist. I'm sharing this today not because it's easy, but because someone out there needs to hear it. Someone out there is questioning everything they were taught, silently, and needs to know they're not alone. From the earliest days of my memory, the sound of the sea was not just background noise. It was a lullaby, a rhythm that matched the beat of my heart. My island, Anjouan, in the Comoros archipelago, was a place of extraordinary beauty. Palms swayed with secrets, and the ocean carried more than just salt and tide. It carried stories, pain, and, for me, a mysterious calling. My father was a fisherman, like his father before him. He would rise before dawn and sail guided only by the stars, as though the constellations themselves whispered divine instructions. My mother, Fatima, was quiet strength in human form, devout, structured, and graceful in the rhythm of her faith. Our home was built with coral blocks and wooden beams, modest but alive with culture and reverence. We prayed, we fasted, we lived by the book. I remember how the muezzin's call would echo through our narrow streets, waking not just the sleeping but the soul itself. As a little girl, I would watch my mother as she unrolled her prayer mat in front of the window. Sunlight filtering through the wooden slats would bathe her in gold. Her lips moved with verses from the Quran, her eyes calm, her posture serene. I thought, this must be peace. And yet, even then, I was aware of something that didn't fit. Even as I recited my surahs, even as I bowed and whispered my amens, there were questions forming inside me. Loud, inconvenient questions that no one around me wanted to hear. Why must God be feared more than loved? Why are women kept silent in places of worship? Why did I feel like I was only doing what was required, not what was real? These questions grew quietly, like roots in the dark. On the outside, I did everything right. I was top of my class in the madrasa. I memorized verses faster than the others. I helped in the kitchen, served during gatherings, behaved with obedience. But internally, I was drowning. There was a longing I couldn't name. When others found comfort in rituals, I felt hollow. When others praised the beauty of submission, I felt like a shadow moving through someone else's life. And yet I stayed silent, because asking would only invite reprimands or worse, shame. I didn't want to bring shame to my family, so I swallowed the silence and waited. Then came the day that split my life in two. I was walking along the beach in Moya, gathering seaweed for my mother's remedies. The tide was unusually high. Foam and sea spray danced around the rocks like something enchanted. And there, half buried in the sand, was a folded piece of paper. Soaked, delicate, nearly dissolving, but still whole. I picked it up out of curiosity, thinking it might be trash. But it wasn't. It was a page from a book, a verse in French, not Arabic or Swahili, the languages I knew. The words were unfamiliar yet hauntingly familiar. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son. I froze. Those words felt like an electric current rushing through me. Something in my soul recognized that sentence like a voice I had heard long ago but forgotten. It wasn't fear I felt. It wasn't confusion. It was something else. Something I had never experienced in all my years of devotion and ritual. It was warmth, intimacy, like I was finally being spoken to, not instructed. It was as if the ocean had conspired to deliver me this message. I didn't understand it fully, but I knew it was meant for me. I folded the paper and hid it in the hem of my dress. And just like that, a new life began. Quietly, secretly, but irreversibly. That single verse became my first prayer. That night, I opened the little metal box that had belonged to my grandmother. It was my secret treasure chest, where I kept shells, coins, and beads. I unwrapped the paper and placed it inside, wrapping it in cloth like it was a sacred relic. Without knowing it, I had built my first altar. From that moment, the verse lived inside me. I would sneak away to reread it, whisper it under my breath like a child with a secret melody. I didn't even know the name of the book it came from, but it was alive. It gave me something I had never felt during prayer before: peace. It planted a question that demanded to grow. Could God really love me, not just judge me? The days that followed were a quiet storm. I still went to madrasa, still knelt during prayer, still bowed at the right times. But my heart was elsewhere. My prayers began to shift. They weren't scripted anymore. They were whispered confessions to a God I didn't fully know yet, but somehow trusted. The ritual gave way to relationship. I began to feel seen, not observed, heard, not corrected. For the first time, I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was more to God than what I had been told. And that terrifying thought, it was also liberating. I know what it means to risk everything for truth. I also know what it feels like to carry questions in secret, to wonder if you're losing your mind or gaining your soul. And if you're watching this, maybe you're carrying questions of your own. I want you to know you're not alone. There is a path, even when the way forward feels invisible. But you have to dare to ask, to seek, to listen. You have to be willing to unlearn in order to truly know. I didn't choose this path because it was easy. I chose it because it was true. And truth, real truth, will always demand everything from you. The changes inside me were invisible to others, but unmistakable to myself. It was like someone had pulled aside a curtain and shown me the sun after years of only seeing shadows. I started to see love everywhere, in the way the wind moved through the palm trees, in the rhythm of the waves, even in silence. But with that love came fear. Fear that if anyone ever found out what was happening in my heart, everything would collapse. I began rehearsing lies just in case someone asked what I was thinking. I perfected the art of hiding in plain sight. Outwardly, I was still the same girl, obedient, respectful, devout. But inwardly, I was crumbling and reforming at the same time. The questions became bolder. They didn't whisper anymore. They shouted. Why had no one ever told me that God could love this much? Why had I been taught only reverence, obedience, and fear? Was it wrong to desire a personal relationship with the Creator? I didn't have anyone to talk to, no one who would understand. My parents were kind, but firm in their beliefs. My teachers would have called my thoughts dangerous. My friends? They were not asking these questions. So I carried it alone, my doubt, my curiosity, my hope. And in that loneliness, something powerful grew. Conviction. The kind of conviction that doesn't come from being taught, but from encountering something real. Then came the dreams. At first, they were vague, just impressions of peace, light, and a presence watching over me. But over time, they became clearer. I saw a man dressed in white standing on a hill with arms outstretched. I had never seen an image of Jesus before, but somehow I knew it was him. In another dream, I was walking on the ocean. The water, usually wild and frightening, was calm beneath my feet. I held an invisible hand that guided me toward a distant island bathed in golden light. I woke up with tears in my eyes, not from fear, but from longing. It was like a part of me I never knew existed had finally awakened. I started praying differently, not loudly, not formally, but honestly. I'd lie in bed, whispering into the darkness, asking this God of love to reveal himself. I didn't know his name. I didn't even know what I believed, but I knew he was real. And in those quiet moments, I felt more heard than I ever had during loud group prayers. There was no need to pretend, no need to perform, just me and the one who had found me on that beach. I didn't stop practicing Islam outwardly, but inwardly, something had shifted forever. My compass was changing. My soul was waking up to a new direction. Everything changed the night I prayed that dangerous prayer. It was during Ramadan, the holiest month. The whole family was gathered around the table, breaking the fast. My father led the prayer as usual, and everyone faced the east. But my heart turned west. I didn't move, didn't speak, just whispered in my soul, "If you are the God of love, show yourself to me." At that moment, the air seemed to shimmer. I felt something wrap around my heart, not like a rope, but like a presence. Warm, real. It was small, like a whisper. But it shook the foundation of my life, because now I knew. I wasn't just believing a doctrine. I was being pursued by a person. From that moment forward, I couldn't return to who I was. The prayer mat still lay in its place. The verses were still recited. The motions still performed. But my heart was elsewhere. I began speaking to Jesus, not out loud, not where anyone could hear, but in the depths of my being. I repeated that verse over and over, "For God so loved the world." It became my secret hymn, my anthem of hope. I didn't fully understand what it meant, but I didn't need to. I believed it, I trusted it, and that trust began to shape me. I became more patient, more compassionate, less afraid. The fruit of a new spirit was already growing in me. Of course, nothing stays hidden forever. My transformation may have been internal, but people started to notice. My mother, usually quick to correct my behavior, began to look at me with a mixture of confusion and concern. I was calmer, more reflective. I smiled more. I stopped arguing about traditions and simply observed them quietly. But the peace I carried made me look like a stranger in my own home. My Aunt Miriam, a revered scholar of Islamic law, was the first to sense the danger. She didn't say anything at first. She just started visiting more often, asking subtle questions, watching me during prayer. And with each passing day, I could feel the noose tightening. It wasn't long before she confronted me. It happened in the middle of a routine evening, as we were preparing for prayer. I was delayed in the kitchen, just a few seconds behind the others. That was all it took. She called my name sharply, her voice like a blade. Her eyes locked onto mine, and I could tell. She knew. She may not have known the details, but she sensed the truth. And in her world, the truth was treason. That evening, I prayed under her watchful gaze, feeling her eyes burn through my back as I bent toward the east. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear, but I stayed still, even as my soul cried out to the west, to the one who had found me. The days that followed were suffocating. My aunt became my shadow. She appeared at odd hours, questioned my every move, and interrogated my theological knowledge. She wasn't just suspicious, she was hunting. My safe places were no longer safe. My prayers were monitored, my routines dissected. I was walking on glass, hiding a flame in my chest that burned brighter each time she tried to snuff it out. Then came the day she found the box, my sanctuary. Inside it was the verse, faded, fragile, but still intact. Her face turned pale with rage. In that moment, she wasn't just my aunt. She was my judge, my jury, and possibly my executioner. She didn't scream. That would have been easier. Instead, she stared at the paper as if it had turned to fire in her hands. Her lips trembled with restrained fury as she asked, almost too softly, "What is this, Amina?" I couldn't answer. My throat locked. My mind raced. But she didn't need a confession. The evidence was in her hand. She had seen enough. To her, this wasn't just a paper. It was proof of corruption, of betrayal, of heresy. I tried to speak, to say something that would calm her, but my silence was louder than words. It confirmed her fears. In her eyes, I had become a danger to the entire household. That night, everything changed. My parents were called. My name was spoken in whispers, behind closed doors, but I could hear everything. I could feel the tension, as if it had substance. No one yelled. No one hit me. But the silence was brutal. My mother's face was unreadable, her eyes swollen with emotion. My father just sat there staring at the ground. He didn't speak. Not once. He couldn't look at me, and I understood. Their daughter was no longer the girl they raised. I had become a stranger, perhaps even an enemy. I wasn't just breaking tradition. I was breaking their hearts. I tried to deny it. I lied. I told them I found the paper by accident, that I didn't understand it. But my aunt didn't believe me. She was relentless. Over the next few days, she intensified her control. She arrived unannounced, disrupted our prayers, asked me to recite rare surahs I hadn't memorized. She was waiting for a mistake, a slip, a weakness. And finally, she got it. During a midday prayer, in a moment of tired distraction, I turned my face toward the west instead of the east. Just a fraction of a second. But when I looked up, her eyes met mine, and I knew. That was it. The war had begun. What happened next still feels like a nightmare. She arrived the next day with her daughters, stern, rigid women known in the community for their strict piety. They came under the pretense of a visit, But I knew better. My parents weren't home. My aunt sat me down and said, "We are going to cleanse you." I laughed nervously, thinking she was exaggerating. She wasn't. The next moments were chaos. I was grabbed, tied, and interrogated. They searched my room, tore through my belongings. Then they found the box again. My altar, my secret, my sin. It was all out in the open now, and they treated it like poison. She called it witchcraft, said I had been possessed by Christian demons, that I was practicing foreign rituals and endangering the purity of our household. I tried to explain, to say I was just searching, just asking, but she wouldn't hear it. Her eyes were wild with religious fury. She wasn't trying to understand me. She was trying to save me, even if it meant destroying me. The room spun as they dragged me outside, toward the fire pit. They boiled water. They prepared a ritual of purification. And I, powerless, watched as everything I loved turned against me. There, in my own backyard, I was no longer a daughter. I was an enemy. The first splash of boiling water broke me. I screamed louder than I ever had before. The pain was unimaginable, not just physically but spiritually. The betrayal hurt more than the burn. My aunt, reciting verses from the Quran, demanded I renounce this foreign god. She called him a demon. She called my faith a disease. But even in the agony, something inside me refused to break. I couldn't let go of the peace I had tasted, the love I had felt. I began whispering one phrase, over and over. Jesus, save me. Not because I expected a miracle, but because it was the only name that brought me peace amidst the horror. That moment of defiance enraged them further. They poured more water. They shouted louder. But I kept praying, kept whispering. And then something strange happened. With every blow, with every insult, I felt stronger. Not in my body, but in my spirit. It was like I was being refined through fire, not destroyed. I felt a presence wrapping around me, comforting me in ways I can't explain. Even though I was tied, bleeding, burned, I felt free. They couldn't touch what had changed inside me, and that terrified them. They weren't just trying to punish me. They were trying to break what they didn't understand. But I had already been made new. The night dragged on. They tied me to a post, left me in the yard like a criminal. My burns throbbed, my body trembled, but my heart remained steady. I remembered the verse again. Whoever believes in him shall not perish. I clung to those words like a lifeline. As the stars watched from above and the pain pulsed through my body, I made a vow. If I survived this, I would never live in fear again. I would never silence my truth. I would never stop seeking the God who found me in the sea, and I would do whatever it took to find freedom, even if it meant losing everything I had ever known. By morning, my body had grown numb, but my spirit stayed alert. I overheard my aunt making calls, plans to bring the imam, to involve the community elders. That meant only one thing: escalation. I had heard stories of others who were dealt with under religious law. Some disappeared, some were shunned, some were buried. I knew I didn't have time. That's when she arrived, Mubarak, an elder woman from a distant part of the island. She entered the yard quietly, with the calm of someone who had seen too much. She approached me, offered water, and whispered a question. "Are you in pain?" I nodded. "And peace?" she asked. I nodded again. Mubarak's presence felt like a miracle. Not because she promised to rescue me or had the power to stop what was coming, but because she understood. She sat beside me in silence, the kind of silence that carries weight. When she spoke again, her words were soft, like raindrops on a roof. "I once called out to Jesus too," she said. That sentence cracked something inside me. For the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't feel alone. She shared that years ago. She had faced the same storm: family rejection, accusations of witchcraft, and the unbearable loneliness that comes from believing differently in a world that doesn't allow questions. And she had survived. She told me how she had escaped to another island, where she lived quietly among others like her. People who had found Jesus in secret. People who prayed not in temples, but in whispers. People who were no longer accepted by their families, but had found family in each other. As she spoke, I listened with my whole soul. Her words were a map, and I was desperate to follow it. She told me about Mujili, a smaller, quieter island, where a few believers lived in hiding. There were no churches, no signs, no Bibles, just hearts burning in secret. "You can come," she said, "but you must be brave. Escape won't be easy." I didn't hesitate. That night, while the others slept, Mubarak returned. She brought a change of clothes, a small bag with food, and instructions. Meet her at the beach after midnight, near the rocks. Every step I took through the house that night felt like walking on broken glass. My body ached, my skin burned, but my spirit moved with a clarity I had never known. I crept past the door where my aunt slept, past the mat where my mother once prayed, and out into the humid darkness. The beach was quiet, moonlight bathing the waves in silver, and there, hidden between rocks, was Mubarak and a small wooden boat, my lifeline. The journey across the water was terrifying. The ocean that had once comforted me now threatened to devour me. Each wave felt like a warning. The boat creaked and shifted with every swell. My hands trembled. My wounds screamed. But Mubarak kept her hand on my shoulder, whispering verses she had memorized in secret. "You are not forsaken. He is with you." I closed my eyes and held on to those words. I wasn't sure what waited for me on the other side, but I knew what I was leaving behind. Pain, silence, and a life that was no longer mine. And sometimes, leaving is the first act of faith. We reached Mojili just before dawn. The island emerged from the mist like a promise. Green hills, small houses, and quiet shores. Mubarak led me through a winding path to a modest home on the outskirts of the village. An older woman named Aisha opened the door. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need explanations. She simply embraced me, held me like a mother who had waited a lifetime for her daughter to return. "You are safe now," she whispered. And for the first time in months, I believed it. I collapsed into her arms, not from weakness, but from the weight of survival finally lifting. The days that followed were quiet, but full of meaning. My body healed slowly. Aisha treated my burns with oils and herbs. Mubarak brought food and companionship. And the others, silent believers, began to visit. Women, men, even children who had left everything to follow the God of love. We met in small groups, never more than 3 or 4. We prayed. We shared stories. We wept. We laughed. There were no sermons, no doctrines, just love and truth. And slowly, I began to understand that I hadn't escaped something. I had entered something greater. A family not bound by blood, but by belief. Over time, I discovered my purpose. My wounds became my ministry. Young girls began to arrive, frightened, broken, scarred like I had been. And they found something in me, a reflection of their own pain, and a possibility of healing. I taught them to read, to pray, to believe that love was not a lie. I told them my story, not to frighten them, but to show them that survival was possible, that God didn't just rescue us, He restored us, and that no matter how deep the wound, grace could reach deeper. My past became a path, my scars became signs, and every whisper of Jesus in the dark became a song of freedom in the light. It has been 5 years now. I'm 20 years old. I teach at the village school by day and lead prayer meetings by night. We are still cautious. The world is still dangerous, but we live, we grow, we believe. I don't need a cathedral to feel close to God. I find Him in the kindness of Aisha's touch, in the laughter of the children, in the strength of women who once thought they were alone. We don't try to convert anyone. We simply live differently. And sometimes someone asks why we have peace in a world so full of fear. That's when we speak of the one who loved the world so much He gave Himself for it. I don't share my story because it's dramatic. I share it because it's real. Because there are still countless voices like mine, silenced, doubting, questioning in the dark, who need to know they are not alone. If you're watching this and you feel trapped between tradition and truth, between fear and faith, let me tell you, there is hope. There is a way. I am living proof that no amount of persecution can stop the love of God. That even when the world calls you cursed, God calls you chosen. That even if they burn your skin, they cannot touch your soul when it belongs to Him. If this story spoke to your heart, I invite you to respond, not to me, but to the one who sees you right now. The same God who met me through a torn piece of paper can meet you through this screen. You don't need perfect words, just a willing heart. Call on Jesus. Ask Him to show you if He's real. if He's the truth, and if you already believe, then stand firm, even if your knees shake. Because the cost of following Jesus is high, but the reward is eternal. No pain in this world can compare to the joy of being truly free. If you need a place to grow, to be discipled, to ask hard questions safely, then stay connected. Subscribe to this channel. Join this community of seekers and believers. Here, you are seen, you are heard, and more than anything, you are loved. We create content to equip and strengthen those walking through fire, so they don't walk alone. Don't let this be the last time we speak. Let it be the beginning of your new journey. If your heart is burning right now, don't ignore it. That's not emotion. That's the Holy Spirit calling you home. Respond. Choose Jesus. Not because someone forced you to, but because you've discovered the truth yourself. Because like me, you've tasted a love that no human system could offer. The kind of love that found me when I was broken and made me whole. And if you're already walking with Jesus but have grown quiet out of fear, I challenge you. Speak. Share your faith. Tell your story. Someone is waiting for your courage to become their clarity. Someone is praying for a sign, and your testimony might be the answer. Don't let comfort keep you from calling. Don't let fear keep you from faith. So please, subscribe to the channel and follow Jesus with everything you are. Share this video with someone who needs hope. Leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from and how we can pray for you. This is more than a video. It's a lifeline, and it might be yours, or someone else's. Don't scroll past it. Let this moment change you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for walking with me through the most sacred pain I've ever known. I may never meet you in person, but I believe one day we will worship side by side. Until then, stay strong, stay in the Word, stay in love. And remember, no matter what the world says about you, the voice of God says you are His. I'm Amina, and this is just the beginning.